Welcome to my class on this fine day as we approach the conclusion of the school year. I just want to give you a little overview of The Giver. You know that it was written by Lois Lowry and it is a Newbery Award-winning science fiction novel. We're down to the last chapters and I wanted to be sure to refresh your memory. The background of our story, like Brave New World, like the novel 1984, it's an attempt to criticize reality by creating a utopian society. As we read and as we read, we discovered that the act of controlling a society is sometimes worse than the disappointments that it's meant to eliminate. And we realized that this utopian society is really what we call a dystopian society. And her society, unlike others, seems to have a little hope at the end. The setting of this novel, The Giver, it's an imaginary world during an unspecified time. The community in the novel is isolated and they seem to be living the greatest, most perfect lifestyle that they could have, with no pain, no illness, no color. Each individual has their designated place in society, which seems to work for most of them. Many of the unique traits and rituals that set people apart in other societies have been eliminated, and the author is deliberately vague in further defining the setting. For to narrow it down any more specifically would detract from the ominous atmosphere of this society having sameness. Of course, in this particular society that Jonas lives, we learn that you have to have precision of language, watch your words. Early on in the novel, we learn that the citizens are taught to speak precisely. They believe that by being accurate, they can avoid any misconceptions that can cause pain or hurt feelings. Not only are rules and apologies recited in unison at school, but students carefully choose the right adjectives to describe certain situations or what they're thinking or feeling. So they're very highly critical on how we speak. This makes the use of euphemisms as an important tool in Jonas's world. And a eugenics, which is what they are promoting, that is the idea that the human race can be improved by controlling who can reproduce. During the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler wanted the Nazi scientists to explore this idea so he could create a perfect society. People who had traits that were considered favorable were allowed and encouraged to reproduce, and people who had traits that were considered unfavorable were discouraged to reproduce, and sometimes even prohibited. So that begs the question, who gets to decide what is a good trait? So the characters in our story, of course, the main character is Jonas, and he's thoughtful and kind, and he has a little sister, Lily, and she's talkative and like a simple child. His mother, she works at the Department of Justice, and her job involves handing out punishment to community members who break one of the many rules. And the father has a nurturing quality, and that makes him perfect for being a nurturer of the newborns. The characters continue with Asher, who happens to be Jonas's best friend. He is described as someone who's easily distracted, and he likes to have fun. Whereas Fiona, another of Jonas's friends, she's gentle and caring with the old people. And Gabriel is this little baby, this new child that Jonas's father brings home to live with the family. He has light eyes, like Jonas and like the Giver. And the Giver, who has pale eyes, is the old man who appears to be much older than his actual age. His job as the receiver of memory, although a position of great honor, has caused him to live with great pain and loneliness. And of course, in The Giver, they say we really have to protect people from wrong choices. We went through the ceremony of 12, and it's here that the jobs are given to the various young people, and they are observed as being the perfect job for the perfect person. Of course, he was apprehensive about their selection for him. He wanted a better job than his father, and he wanted to do something that he would like. The children had no choice in the selection of their jobs, and that's what the chief elder is for. He or she makes those decisions. So I want to remind you that the theme of this story is courage. The events that are evidence of this theme would be Jonas has the courage to take on his difficult job. You know, he knew that there was going to be pain involved. Jonas speaks with the giver about his thoughts, and the giver has the courage to want to change the system with Jonas's help. And finally, Jonas has the courage to leave the community when he realizes that he cannot wait for the giver's plan. Again, these are the characters, and I am excited for us to finish our novel, The Giver. So we're going to continue reading our book, and we are at chapter 20. Please write in your spiral, chapter 20, and pause this video to take notes as you feel necessary. I won't go home. You can't make me. Jonas sobbed and shouted and pounded the bed with his fists. Sit up, Jonas, the giver told him firmly. Jonas obeyed him. Weeping, shuddering, he sat on the edge of the bed. He could not look at the giver. You may stay here tonight. I want to talk to you, but you must be quiet now while I notify your family unit. No one must hear you cry. Jonas looked up wildly. No one ever heard that little twin cry either. No one but my father. He collapsed in sobs again. The giver waited silently. Finally, Jonas was able to quiet himself, and he sat huddled, his shoulders shaking. The giver went to the wall speaker and clicked the switch to on. Yes, receiver? How may I help you? Notify the new receiver's family unit that he will be staying with me tonight for additional training. I will take care of that, sir. Thank you for your instructions, the voice said. I will take care of that, sir. I will take care of that, sir, Jonas mimicked in a cruel, sarcastic voice. I will do whatever you like, sir. I will kill people, sir. Old people, small newborn people. I'll be happy to kill them, sir. Thank you for your instructions, sir. How may I help you? He couldn't seem to stop. The giver grasped his shoulders firmly. Jonas fell silent and stared at him. Listen to me, Jonas. They can't help it. They know nothing. You said that to me once before. I said it because it's true. It's the way they live. It's the life that they've created for them. It's the same life that you would have if you had not been chosen as my successor. But he lied to me, Jonas wept. It's what he was told to do, and he knows nothing else. What about you? Do you lie to me too? Jonas almost spat the question at the giver. I am empowered to lie, but I have never lied to you. Jonas stared at him. Release is always like that? For people who break the rules 3 times? For the old? Do they kill the old too? Yes, it's true. And what about Fiona? She loves the old. She's in training to take care of them. Does she know yet? What will she do when she finds out? How will she feel? Jonas brushed wetness from his face with the back of one hand. Fiona is already being trained in the fine art of release, the giver told him. She's very efficient at her work. Your red-haired friend, feelings are not part of the life she's learned. Jonas wrapped his arms around himself and rocked. And rocked his own body back and forth. What should I do? I can't go back. I can't. The giver stood up. First, I will order our evening meal. Then we will eat. Jonas found himself using the nasty, sarcastic voice again. Then we'll have a sharing of feelings. The giver gave a rueful, anguished, empty laugh. Jonas, you and I are the only ones who have feelings. We've been sharing them now for almost a year. I'm sorry, Giver, Jonas said miserably. I don't mean to be so hateful, not to you. The giver rubbed Jonas's hunched shoulders. And after we eat, he went on, we'll make a plan. Jonas looked up puzzled. A plan for what? There's nothing we can do. It's always been this way, before me, before you, before the ones who came before you. Back and back and back. His voice trailed the familiar phrase. Jonas, the giver said after a moment, it's true that it has been this way for what seems forever, but the memories tell us that it has not always been. People felt things once. You and I have been part of that, so we know. We know that they once felt things like pride and sorrow and love, Jonas added, remembering the family scene that had so affected him. And pain. He thought again of the soldier. The worst part of holding the memories is not the pain, it's the loneliness of it. Memories need to be shared. I've started to share them with you, Jonas said, trying to cheer him. That's true. And having you here with me over the past year has made me realize that things must change. For years I felt that they should, but it seems so hopeless. Now, for the first time, I think there might be a way, the giver said slowly. And you brought it to my attention. Barely, he glanced at the clock, 2 hours ago. Jonas watched him and listened. It was late at night now. They talked and talked. Jonas sat wrapped in a robe belonging to the giver, the long robe that only elders wore. It was possible what they had planned. Barely possible. If it failed, he would very likely be killed. But what did that matter? If he stayed, his life was no longer worth living. Yes, he told the giver, I'll do it. I think I can do it. I'll try anyway. But I want you to come with me. The giver shook his head. Jonas, he said, the community has depended all these generations back and back and back on a resident receiver to hold their memories for them. I've turned over many of them to you in the past year, and I can't take them back. There's no way for me to get them back if I have given them. So if you escape, once you're gone, and Jonas, you know that you can never return. Jonas nodded solemnly. It was the terrifying part. Yes, he said, I know, but if you come with me, the giver shook his head and made a gesture to silence him. He continued, if you get away, if you get beyond, if you get to elsewhere, it will mean that the community has to bear the burden themselves of the memories you had been holding for them. I think that they can and that they will acquire some wisdom, but it will be desperately hard for them. When we lost Rosemary 10 years ago and her memories returned to the people, they panicked. And those were such few memories compared to yours. When your memories return, they'll need help. Remember how I helped you in the beginning when the receiving of memories was new to you? Jonas nodded. It was scary at first and it hurt a lot. You needed me then, and now they will. It's no use. They'll find someone to take my place. They'll choose a new receiver. There's no one ready for training, not right now. Oh, they'll speed up the selection, of course, but I can't think of another child who has the right qualities. There's a little female with pale eyes, but she's only 6. That's correct. I know the one you mean. Her name is Catherine. But she's too young, so they'll be forced to bear those memories. I want you to come, Giver, Jonas pleaded. No, I have to stay here, the giver said firmly. I want to, Jonas. If I go with you and together we take all their protection from the memories, Jonas, the community will be left with no one to help them. They'd be thrown into chaos. They'd destroy themselves. I can't go. Giver, Jonas said, you and I don't need to care about the rest of them. The giver looked at him with a questioning smile. Jonas hung his head. Of course they needed to care. It was the meaning of everything. And in any case, Jonas, the giver, sighed, I wouldn't make it. I'm very weakened now. Do you know that I no longer see colors? Jonas's heart broke. He reached for the giver's hand. You have the colors, the giver told him. and you have the courage. I will help you to have the strength. A year ago, Jonas reminded him, when I had just become a 12, when I began to see the first color, you told me that the beginning had been different for you, but that I wouldn't understand. The giver brightened. That's true. And do you know, Jonas, that with all your knowledge now, with all your memories, with all you've learned, still, you won't understand because you've been a little selfish. Oh, excuse me. Actually, because I've been a little selfish.